I was standing in front of the bathroom mirror, tightening my tie, when my phone buzzed against the sink. Emma's school music night. 7th grade orchestra. She had been nervous all week, pretending not to be. I had taken the evening shift at the clinic so I could leave early. I remember feeling proud of that small adjustment, the kind of quiet sacrifice fathers make without announcing it. The message lit up the screen. "Dad, come in. Just don't react right away." For a second, I smiled. It sounded like something childish. Maybe she'd tried a new hairstyle and regretted it. Maybe she'd stained her blouse. Maybe she just needed reassurance before walking onto a stage with bright lights and unforgiving eyes. But then I read it again. Don't react right away. Something in my chest tightened. A slow pull. Instinct. The kind that doesn't shout, doesn't panic. It just whispers that something is wrong. I stepped into the hallway. The house felt ordinary. Too ordinary. The television murmured from the living room where Sarah was flipping through channels while checking the time. The smell of her perfume hung in the air, floral, sharp, familiar. From the kitchen came the clink of dishes she'd abandoned in her rush. "Your parents are already at the auditorium," she called out casually. "Dad texted. Front row seats." I didn't answer. I walked to Emma's door and knocked. A pause. "Come in," she said. Her voice was thin. I pushed the door open slowly. She stood near her bed, still in her jeans, her concert blouse wrinkled in her hands. The lamp cast a soft yellow glow over the room, but it didn't warm anything. Her curtains were half drawn, cutting the evening light into slanted lines across the carpet. She wouldn't look at me. "What's going on?" I asked gently. "We're going to be late." She swallowed. I could see the movement in her throat. Her fingers trembled slightly against the fabric she held. "Just don't react right away." I nodded. My mouth felt dry. "Okay." She turned her back to me. For a heartbeat, I thought she was changing shirts. Then she lifted the fabric, and the world narrowed. Bruises, deep purple bleeding into sickly yellow, spread across her back, along her ribs, some shaped like fingers, some like blunt impact, layered over each other, old and new. My brain tried to reject the image. It tried to categorize it as accident, a fall, sports injury, something reasonable. But there were too many, and they were too deliberate. I stepped closer, slowly. I could hear my own breathing, steady, controlled, as if my body had decided that if it panicked, everything would shatter. "What happened?" I asked. She didn't turn around at first. "It's Grandpa Tom," she whispered. The name dropped into the room like a stone in still water. Ripples. "Every Saturday." The words came in fragments. "Every Saturday when you're on shift, Grandma just turns away. She says, 'Just deal with it.'" I felt something inside me split open, but I did not raise my voice. I did not swear. I did not storm down the stairs. Instead, I memorized the bruises, every shade, every mark, every silent scream painted on her skin. Because rage is loud at first, but the most dangerous kind is quiet. "Emma," I said carefully, "look at me." She turned. Her eyes were red, but not from crying, from holding it in, from carrying something too heavy for too long. "How long?" I asked. She hesitated. "A few months. A few months. Every Saturday dinner. Every time I had joked about how lucky she was to have involved grandparents. Every time I had worked late, thinking I was being responsible. Every Saturday. I felt shame crawl under my skin. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice cracked then. "I thought you wouldn't believe me. Mom says Grandpa just plays rough. She says I'm too sensitive." There it was. Not just violence. Dismissal. Gaslighting. Silence. I exhaled slowly. "Pack your backpack," I said. She blinked. "What?" "Just essentials. Clothes. Phone charger. Anything important. We're leaving." She searched my face, as if looking for hesitation. There wasn't any. Outside her door, Sarah's voice floated down the hallway. "Are you two ready? We have to go." I stepped into the hall. "We're not going to the music night," I said. Sarah looked up from her phone. confused. "Excuse me? We're leaving." Her expression shifted. Annoyance first, then suspicion. "What are you talking about? My parents are already there." Emma stepped into the hallway behind me, backpack on her shoulder. Sarah's eyes flicked to it. "What's going on?" I looked at her, really looked at her. "Move." Her jaw tightened. "You're being dramatic. Dad would never." "Move," I repeated. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. She stepped in front of the door. "Don't do this," she said sharply. "You're making things up. You always overreact. Tonight is important." I walked back, knelt down, and lifted Emma into my arms. She was taller now, heavier, but in that moment she felt small again, like when she used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms. Sarah started shouting. Accusations, denials, panic dressed as outrage. I walked past her, opened the door. The cold evening air hit my face, and it felt cleaner than anything inside that house. I buckled Emma into the passenger seat. She stared straight ahead. I got into the driver's seat and started the engine. Sarah came out onto the porch. "You're ruining everything," she yelled. "They're waiting for her." Good, I thought. Let them wait. I drove, not toward the school, toward Mike's house. The drive felt unreal. Streetlights blurred. My hands gripped the steering wheel harder than necessary. Emma didn't speak. Halfway there, she whispered, "Are you mad at me?" The question broke something. I glanced at her. "I'm not mad at you," I said quietly. "I'm mad that you were hurt." She nodded once and fell silent again. Mike opened the door after one knock. He took one look at my face and stepped aside. No questions. Emma went straight to the couch and curled into herself, hugging a pillow like armor. I stepped outside and pulled out my phone. First call, the police. My voice was steady, clinical. I gave details, names, dates, location. Second call, a lawyer I knew through a patient. Third call, the clinic. I wouldn't be in tomorrow. By the time Sarah started calling, the report was already filed. I answered once. "You've lost your mind," she screamed. "My parents are at the auditorium asking where she is." "She's safe," I said. "You're accusing my father of something disgusting." "I'm reporting what my daughter told me." "She's exaggerating." I felt ice spread through my veins. "She's bruised." Silence. Then softer, more dangerous. "You're destroying this family." "No," I thought. "I'm protecting it. Or what's left of it." I hung up. When the officers arrived, Emma spoke quietly but clearly. She didn't change her story. Not once. I watched her as she talked. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't confused. She was tired. That night, I sat in Mike's living room while Emma slept under a borrowed blanket. I stared at the ceiling and replayed every Saturday I had worked late. Every time Sarah said, "It's good for her to spend time with Dad." Every uneasy glance I had dismissed. Guilt is a heavy thing, but it doesn't get to paralyze you. Not when your child needs you to move. By midnight, I had already decided. There would be no negotiation. No quiet family meeting. No sweeping it under the rug for the sake of appearances. If believing my daughter meant burning down my marriage, so be it. If protecting her meant courtrooms and custody battles and people whispering behind my back, so be it. Because some lines once crossed demand fire, and I would not clap in an auditorium while my daughter wore bruises under her blouse. Tell me something. If you had seen what I saw on her back, would you have waited? Would you have asked for more proof? Or would you have walked out with her like I did and never looked back? I didn't sleep. Emma did eventually. Exhaustion dragged her under sometime after 2 in the morning. She lay curled on Mike's couch, knees tucked to her chest, one hand gripping the edge of the blanket like someone afraid it might be pulled away. I sat in the chair across from her and watched. Every small movement made my jaw tighten. When she shifted, I wondered if it hurt. When she exhaled sharply, I imagined hands where no hands should ever be. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after something irreversible. Around 3, my phone buzzed again. Sarah. I let it ring the first time. The second time I answered. Her voice wasn't screaming now. It was cold. The police showed up at my parents' house. Good, I said. You humiliated them. No, I replied evenly. They humiliated themselves. A pause. You've made a mistake, she continued. Emma misunderstood something. Dad plays rough sometimes. He jokes. He teases. She's always been sensitive. I closed my eyes for a moment. There it was again. Minimizing. Explaining. Protecting the wrong person. She has bruises, I said. Multiple. In different stages. Silence again. But not shock. Calculation. You're blowing this up. Do you have any idea what this will do to our family? I looked at Emma. Our family was already broken, I said. You just didn't want to see it. She inhaled sharply. You're choosing her over us. The sentence echoed. Choosing her over us. As if she wasn't part of us. As long as I'm breathing, I said quietly, I will always choose my daughter. I hung up before she could answer. By dawn, I had already spoken to the lawyer again. Temporary custody. Protective order. Emergency hearing. He moved fast. He heard something in my voice that told him this wasn't negotiable. At 7, I drove Emma to the hospital. She sat beside me in silence, staring out the window. The morning light made her look younger somehow. Smaller. In the examination room, she flinched when the nurse asked her to lift her shirt. I stood near her head, not the bruises. I held her hand. The doctor documented everything. Carefully. Professionally. Measurements. Photographs. Notes. Each click of the camera felt like a hammer. Proof. Validation. And confirmation that I hadn't overreacted. When we left, Emma didn't cry. She just said, Are you mad at Mom? I took a breath. I'm disappointed, I said. She nodded like she understood more than she should. By noon, Child Protective Services had contacted me. The school counselor too. Apparently Emma had mentioned Saturday dinners before. Fear. Anxiety. Reluctance. I gripped the steering wheel harder when I heard that. Signs. There had been signs. A teacher had noticed she'd started eating lunch alone. A counselor had written down that she seemed afraid of weekends. And Sarah had brushed it off. She's dramatic. She doesn't like discipline. She's exaggerating. Every dismissal now felt like complicity. By afternoon, the police called back. They had interviewed Tom. He denied everything. Of course he did. He called Emma confused, sensitive, attention-seeking. I felt something dark stir inside me. But anger without action is useless. So I kept moving. The emergency custody hearing was set for the next morning. That night, I took Emma to a small motel near the courthouse. Neutral ground. Somewhere no one could drop by. She sat cross-legged on the bed, flipping through channels without watching anything. Are they going to take me away? She asked suddenly. The question hit harder than any accusation Sarah had thrown at me. No, I said firmly. I'm not letting anyone take you anywhere you don't want to go. What if Mom hates me? I walked over and sat beside her. If someone hates you for telling the truth, I said quietly, that's their shame, not yours. She leaned against me then. For the first time since the night before, she allowed herself to cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just small, shaking sobs into my shoulder. I held her, and I made a promise I would not break. The next morning in court, Sarah wouldn't look at me. Her parents weren't there. A no-contact order had already been requested. Her lawyer argued that I was overreacting, that this was a misunderstanding, that I had abducted our daughter in a fit of anger. I sat still while they spoke. Then the doctor's report was presented. The photographs, the documented injuries, the counselor's notes, the teacher's observations, the timeline. Silence spread across the courtroom like a stain. The judge looked at Sarah. Why were these concerns not addressed earlier? She had no answer. Temporary primary custody was granted to me. Protective order issued against Tom. Supervised visitation only, pending investigation. When we walked out of that courthouse, Emma squeezed my hand. Does this mean I'm safe? Yes, I said, for now. But safety isn't just physical. It's emotional. And that's where the real fracture began. That evening, Sarah showed up at the motel. She looked smaller somehow. Not defeated. Defensive. You've turned her against me, she said immediately. No, I replied. Your silence did. You could have talked to me first. I did, I said. Last night. You defended him. She looked away. You don't understand what this does to my parents. I stepped closer. I don't care what it does to your parents. Her eyes flashed. That's my father. And that's my daughter. The air between us felt charged. You're destroying our marriage, she said finally. I didn't hesitate. If protecting her destroys it, I said quietly, then it was never worth saving. She stared at me like she was seeing someone else. Maybe she was, because something inside me had shifted permanently. There would be no going back to polite dinners. No more Saturday shifts while pretending everything was fine. No more benefit of the doubt. When she left, she didn't slam the door. She just walked away. And for the first time, I realized that I wasn't afraid of that. Emma slept peacefully that night. No twitching. No shallow breaths. Just steady, even breathing. I sat by the window and watched the parking lot lights flicker. Everything I had built, marriage, in-laws, routine, was collapsing. But my daughter was safe. And if the price of her safety was my entire world, then I would pay it without blinking. Because some choices define you, and I had made mine. Let me ask you something. If your child whispered the truth to you, and the truth threatened to tear apart everything comfortable in your life, would you still choose them? Or would you choose peace? Be honest. Which would you have chosen? The investigation moved faster than I expected. Maybe because there was evidence. Maybe because Emma had been braver than I understood. Or maybe because when silence finally breaks, it doesn't whisper, it crashes. Within days, the school counselor confirmed prior conversations about Emma's fear of Saturday dinners. A teacher reported growing anxiety. The doctor's documentation left little room for interpretation. Dates lined up. Patterns emerged. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was repetition. Tom was charged. Assault. No contact order. Formal investigation. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt hollow. Because justice, when it arrives, doesn't erase what already happened. It just confirms it was real. Child Protective Services met with Sarah. They didn't treat her as a monster. They treated her as negligent. Failure to protect. Those 3 words did more damage to her than any accusation I could have thrown. She called me that evening. Her voice wasn't angry anymore. It was fragile. They're saying I failed her. You did, I replied. A sharp inhale on the other end. You're enjoying this. The accusation almost made me laugh. Enjoying watching my daughter explain bruises? I said quietly. Enjoying courtrooms and police reports? Silence. They're saying I ignored warning signs. You did. Her breathing grew uneven. I didn't think he would. That's the problem. I cut in. You didn't think. She started crying then. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a slow unraveling. I trusted him. He's my father. And she trusted you. The words hung between us like something irreversible. Because that was the real wound. Not just the bruises. The betrayal of being dismissed. The betrayal of not being believed. I filed for temporary primary custody the same week. My lawyer didn't sugarcoat it. This will get ugly, he said. She'll fight. Her parents will fight. They'll question your motives. They can question whatever they want, I replied. I'm not negotiating her safety. The hearing was brutal. Sarah's attorney suggested I was exaggerating to gain leverage in a divorce. Leverage. As if I had planned this. As if I had orchestrated my daughter's bruises for legal advantage. I sat there and absorbed it. Because anger in court looks unstable. And I needed to look steady. The judge reviewed the medical report again. The counselor's notes. The teacher's statement. And then he looked directly at Sarah. Why did you dismiss your daughter's concerns? She stammered. He's always been strict. I thought she was overreacting. Overreacting to documented physical injuries? She had no answer. Temporary primary custody was granted to me. Supervised visitation for Sarah. No contact between Emma and her grandparents. Felt like victory. Felt like loss. All at once. When we left the courthouse, Emma didn't smile. She just looked relieved, like someone who had been holding her breath for months. "Does Mom hate me now?" she asked quietly. I knelt in front of her on the courthouse steps. "No," I said. "She hates what this means. That's different." "Will you ever leave me there again?" The question sliced deep. "Never," I said, and I meant it. We moved out of the house 2 weeks later. I didn't want Emma sleeping in rooms filled with memories of denial. We found a small apartment closer to my clinic. New walls, new locks, new routine, stability. She started therapy. The first few sessions were hard. She didn't want to talk. She didn't want to relive anything. But slowly, carefully, she began unpacking the weight she'd been carrying. Fear of Saturdays. Fear of not being believed. Fear of breaking the family. That one hurt the most. She had been protecting us. By staying quiet. The divorce papers came soon after. Sarah signed quickly. Too quickly. Maybe she knew there was no repairing this. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she couldn't stand looking at me anymore. The living reminder of what she failed to see. The court later determined she had indeed failed to protect her daughter. Not maliciously, but definitively. Primary custody remained with me. She was allowed supervised visits until further evaluation. Tom's case moved through the system. He denied everything until confronted with the medical evidence and witness statements. Even then, he minimized, claimed discipline, claimed exaggeration, but the pattern was too clear. He received a formal charge and a strict no-contact order. When the verdict was finalized, I didn't attend. I didn't need to hear the details again. I had already seen enough. Months passed. Emma changed. At first, she barely smiled. She flinched at sudden noises. She avoided physical contact unless she initiated it. But therapy helped. Routine helped. Safety helped. One evening, about 6 months later, she laughed at something on television. Not a polite smile. A real laugh. It startled both of us. She looked at me afterward, almost embarrassed. "I forgot what that felt like," she said. I swallowed hard. "You don't have to forget anymore," I told her. Sarah called occasionally, sometimes to check on Emma, sometimes to argue, sometimes to cry. Once she said, "You've turned her against me." I answered calmly, "No, the truth did that." She started seeing a therapist too, I was told. Whether from guilt or court recommendation, I don't know. But I know this: accountability changes people, or it breaks them. 1 year later, Emma stood on another stage. New school. New orchestra. I sat in the front row. Alone. No grandparents. No divided loyalties. Just us. When she finished playing, she scanned the audience. Found me. And smiled. That moment was quiet. But it was everything. After the concert, she hugged me tightly. "Thank you for believing me," she whispered. Believing her. As if that had been optional. That sentence has replayed in my head more than anything else. Because the bar should never have been that low. Believe your child. Protect your child. Immediately. Even if it burns down your marriage. Even if it fractures your extended family. Even if it turns your life upside down. The world did turn upside down. I lost a wife. I lost in-laws. I lost the illusion of a stable family. But I kept my daughter. And more importantly, I kept her trust. Sometimes I sit alone at night and think about the version of me who almost went to that music night without opening her door. The version who might have waited. Who might have said, "Let's talk about this later." That man would have failed her. I didn't. And I would do it again. Let me ask you something. If your child asked you not to react, but showed you something that demanded action, would you stay calm for appearances? Or would you walk out into the night with them no matter who you left behind? Be honest. Would you have chosen differently? A year changes a person. It changed Emma first. Then it changed me. The apartment became more than just a temporary escape. It became routine, predictable, safe. There were no surprise visits, no Saturday dinners, no forced smiles around a table that now felt like a crime scene in memory. Safety is quiet, and quiet, after chaos, feels almost suspicious. Emma started sleeping through the night without jolting awake. The dark circles under her eyes faded. Her shoulders, once permanently tense, began to lower. Therapy gave her language for what happened. Words replaced fear. One evening she came home from school, dropped her backpack and said casually, "I told my therapist I don't feel scared anymore." She said it like it was a weather update, but I felt it like a verdict. Not guilty, not broken, healing. The legal process concluded in phases. Tom accepted a plea deal, official charge, mandatory counseling, permanent no-contact order with Emma. I didn't attend the final hearing. I didn't need to see him again. The image of those bruises had already sentenced him in my mind. Sarah requested expanded visitation after completing her own counseling program. The court granted supervised visits first. The first time Emma agreed to see her, I drove her to the family center and waited in the parking lot. I watched the entrance doors like a guard on duty. 45 minutes later, Emma walked out. She wasn't crying. She wasn't smiling. She looked measured. "How was it?" I asked. "She cried," Emma said. "A lot. And you?" I told her I needed her to believe me next time. Next time. That phrase lingered. Children shouldn't have to negotiate belief. But she had. Sarah tried to repair things slowly. Letters, short calls, structured visits. She apologized, over and over. But apologies don't erase memory. They just acknowledge it. Trust rebuilds like bone. Slowly, painfully, and never quite the same shape. I watched from the sidelines. Not interfering. Not encouraging. Just present. Always present. The school events. A therapy milestones. A doctor appointments. Consistency became my silent language. Emma eventually asked if she could move back to the house we used to live in. The question surprised me. "Why?" I asked carefully. "I don't want that place to belong to bad things," she said. I thought about it for a long time. The house had been sold during the divorce. New owners, new furniture, new life. "You don't have to reclaim a place to prove you're okay," I told her. "Sometimes leaving is strength." She nodded and didn't ask again. 2 years passed. Emma grew taller, stronger. She started playing violin again, but this time without dread attached to weekends. She joined a small group at school focused on peer support. One day she came home and said, "There's another girl who's scared of going to her uncle's house." My stomach tightened. What did you tell her? That if she tells someone and they don't believe her, she should tell someone else. I had to turn away for a moment so she wouldn't see my eyes, because that was the lesson she had learned. Not that adults always protect you, but that you keep speaking until someone does. Sarah and I finalized everything quietly. The divorce decree came through without theatrics. No shouting, no courtroom spectacle, just signatures. End of marriage. I expected to feel emptier. Instead, I felt clarity. We had not fallen apart because of one decision. We had fallen apart because when it mattered most, we chose differently. She chose her father. I chose my daughter. That difference was irreversible. 3 years after that night, Emma performed a solo. High school auditorium this time. Larger crowd. Brighter lights. She didn't ask me not to react. She didn't ask me to stay calm. She just said, "Be there." And I was front row. When she finished, the applause felt distant. All I could see was the small girl standing in her bedroom years ago, lifting her shirt with trembling hands. And the version of me who could have hesitated. I didn't hesitate. That's what saved us. Later that evening, as we walked to the car, she slipped her hand into mine. Not because she needed protection, because she wanted connection. "I'm glad it was you," she said quietly. "What do you mean?" "That I told." I swallowed. So am I. The world didn't end when I chose her. It shifted. It narrowed. clarified. I lost comfort. I lost extended family. I lost a marriage that couldn't withstand truth. But I gained something permanent, her trust. And once a child loses that, it rarely comes back. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how quickly I acted. If I regret not investigating privately first. If I regret calling the police before confronting Tom face to face. No, because predators thrive in delay, in doubt, in family loyalty, in quiet. The moment she spoke, the moment I saw those bruises, the choice was already made. You believe, you act, immediately, even if the world calls you extreme, even if your spouse calls you destructive, even if the extended family turns on you. Because at the end of the day, there is only one question that matters. When your child looks at you and asks for protection, do you give it, or do you protect everyone else first? I chose her. I would choose her again. And I will never apologize for that. So tell me something. If that message had appeared on your phone, Dad, come in. Just don't react right away. Would you have walked down the hallway? Or would you have told yourself it could wait until after the concert? Be honest. What would you have done?